There's the issue. All right, sorry about that. Thank you, Princess Leia, for pointing that out. Yeah, I was a little short on audio, but I think I have it now, and I think I have it a lot better. But anyway, the main issue is, as I've talked about before, the controversy regarding Chris Caldwell. It isn't so much him that is the controversy; it is the fact that her husband is the fact that her husband is running the Republican Party of Arkansas, and he's running it at behest of organizations that are opposed to principles in the Republican Party. And by the way, these are the organizations that ran Arkansas into the ground when Democrats were in charge. Same group, Arkansas Trucking Association. They're the reason why when an illegal alien is pulled over or somebody who can't read it, road signs, they're just let go so they can end up going off and killing somebody else. Empower Healthcare Solutions. I actually found a story about this group recently, and I'll tell you part of the problem. This organization was under investigation regarding Medicaid fraud. And here's the Empower Healthcare Solutions. They served 20,000 Arkansas Medicaid beneficiaries, but they were under. They had to separate from another organization, Beacon Health Options. There was a big lawsuit over this. You can read this whole article here. Empower is also free of medical fraud investigation. The Attorney General's office announced had reached an almost $8 million civil settlement with Empower, which denies wrongdoing. So very suspicious here of what happened. We know that in Arkansas there was a lot of Medicaid fraud, and it would have been a lot more Medicaid fraud had Brian King not stepped in and done something about it. Anyway, I'll post the link to the article so you can read it all. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But this is one of the clients of Chris Caldwell. And recently, Chris Caldwell has been in the news for a bunch of stupid, cowardly little text regarding the Secretary of State. This is the organization he uses to push this. I've talked about this before, Arkansas Conservatives. And if you get text about the Secretary of State's race, you will find you'll find that he still hasn't filed who's actually funding this, but a lot of people are getting text claiming Brian Norris is this somehow evil person, that he's a leftist. It's not even so much pro Kim Hammer; it's just anti Brian Norris. And Chris Caldwell seems to be all he's capable of doing, is bundling a bunch of money from suspicious organizations and slandering conservatives. And that seems to be his MO. That seems to be what he likes to do. This was a post about this from Republican Patriots of Arkansas. Again, I talked about this before. This is the paper filing of when Chris Caldwell first did this. And here's a Conduit News story about Ashley Caldwell. And there's some of her resume there. Senior director at whatever Mbecta is. Governor's Mansions Association. And again, it's not so much that people are upset about her. It's about this clown and this stuff right here, and how this guy's being rewarded for putting out garbage claiming that Brian Norris was empowering the radical left to destroy our Constitution and erase our freedoms. And by the way, me talking about this isn't endorsing any candidate whatsoever, but this kind of stuff is divisive. It's wrong. It's slander, and it shouldn't be done by a guy pretending to be anything a Republican, when in reality he's working again for organizations that are opposed to everything we stand for. And somebody also needs to file an ethics complaint about this guy because he started this organization on February the 25th. Yeah, it was filed February 25th, and he put out some of these before the March 3rd primary, and he is still trying to affect the primary runoff election, which is going to take place on March 31st. Early voting starts March 24th. So this guy's trying to affect the Secretary of State's race. Oddly enough, this is where you see the financial disclosures. Right now, it's Cole Jester, who is going to run for, I believe, land commissioner. But this guy's using somebody's money to slander someone who's running for Secretary of State. And there's actually another text that has gone out. I don't have an image of it up yet, but you get the point. And this is another example of problems we've had regarding Sarah Huckabee Sanders, because we recently had several appointments to the Board of Corrections, and this was the fight over the prison boondoggle that they're trying to do up in Franklin County. Up in Franklin County, there was an effort to put a multi-million-dollar prison, despite there not having water and resources for it, and other places wanting to have the prison there. But there's been all kinds of contracts done. There's a group called Deloitte, a global Big Four network service provider, Gilmore Davis Strategy Group. John Gilmore is Senator Ben Gilmore's brother. Mr. Barker became a partner in the Gilmore Davis Strategy Group. And then this was actually January 2nd. Mr. Barker has now been appointed as new chairman of the Arkansas Board of Corrections, which sees the Franklin County Prison. Jamie Barker has no experience whatsoever in corrections. He's never been a sheriff or police officer in any way, shape, or form. Nate Lee is another appointed official, along with Grant Hodges. I believe Grant Hodges was a state rep at one point. Again, no experience in corrections whatsoever. And then Joe Proferi, I forgot what his title is. And this was a big fight over what's going on with the prison. So when you have appointments like this, and you have, her campaign manager running the Republican Party from behind closed doors, that's why a lot of people are getting upset over what's going on regarding appointments. It's not so much the campaign manager's wife or the position, it's the fact that this seemingly anti-conservative slant is being rewarded. And that's what people are upset about. And so what a lot of people are doing is they're starting to wake up and realize, just because someone is putting out a bunch of TV ads and commercials and text and spending lots of money saying they're Christian conservative and my opponent isn't, a lot of people aren't buying that anymore. They're starting to, let's see, what's their record? What are they doing that actually matters? And this brings me to another issue regarding the Secretary of State's race. I don't know if Chris Caldwell is directly in charge of this message overall, but there is now an effort to try and make the Secretary of State's race about mean tweets. And again, me posting this story doesn't mean I'm endorsing anybody. This is Cole Jester, the current Secretary of State, who's running for land commissioner. I forgot who originly made this AI image. I've seen it before. Whoever it is, I didn't make it. Someone else did, and Conduit used it. So credit to whoever did that. This is an article by Conduit News. It's a 2-minute read. And I'll scroll down to kind of the end here. Now, with Norris positioned to win the runoff because he got the most in the primary election, the establishment is in full panic mode. Their latest move, unelected Secretary of State Cole Jester, appointed by Governor Sanders, suddenly declaring that Norris should be disqualified over old mean tweets that somehow weren't a problem during the primary. They also weren't a problem for Trey Bodert, who used similar language when he was running for office on behalf of Sarah Huckabee Sanders. In the same breath, he endorsed Hammer without offering a single substantive reason. The message is obvious. Norris isn't one of them. He won't bow to donors, insiders, or the get along culture that protects the status quo. It's a familiar playbook. The same political class in Washington tried this script in 2016 against Donald Trump. clutching outraged theater and last minute moral panic meant to scare voters back into line. It didn't work then because people understood that just because someone uses bad language and other things that Trump did, the fact that he said, I think, two other marriages and some of his businesses failed, people didn't care because people wanted someone to fix the country. They didn't want someone who was just going to go along to get along. And that's why people said, we just don't care about this anymore. You can't fool anybody. I remember my wife and I, along with her nephews, just saw Spider-Man: The Way Home, and in that movie, there's a bad guy named Mysterio who uses illusions to fool Spider-Man, and eventually, Spider-Man gets what's known as his Spidey sense working. He calls it the Peter Tingle, and he's able to just beat Mysterio because he's no longer fooled by holograms or anything. And he says, at the end, right after Mysterio gets himself killed, uh, Spider-Man says, "You can't fool me anymore. It doesn't work anymore." And that's the way a lot of people are at now. They're not getting fooled. And what a lot of people want is actual results. And this segues me from this another issue. So you see this pearl clutching and all this stuff. A lot of the people who proclaim Christianity and fight for it, and really have, are one of the things they did is they pushed for the Ten Commandments monument to be displayed at the state capitol, and they also passed a law that said it needs to be in every school, like it was before this nation was ever a nation, and for nearly 2 centuries, prayer and the Ten Commandments were in schools. Well, as you know, if you've kept up anything with what goes on with this issue, a judge came in and kicked it out again. So this is a story. This was posted on Truth Social by Lytle Annie. And so I'll give her credit for originally posting this on the Truth Social, which is an alternative to Elon Musk's Twitter X. By the way, Twitter X is still shadow banning people. They are shadow banning conservatives. He's just doing it in a less subtle way. Elon is not a conservative. He's pretending to be. He does a lot of good things, but he is the main effort of Elon Musk is to put us in some futuristic time like iRobot, or a place where people with the keystrokes can shut someone down. Smart meters, smart tech, everybody under surveillance. That's the kind of world Elon Musk wants. He knew he couldn't get that under Biden because Biden was so incompetent the nation was going to collapse. But in any event, so from the link to the story, it goes to a website called Newsbreak. This is the first I've seen of this organization. They have a video here. Actually, let me go ahead and see if I can play it. Well, it looks like it's got ads. I'll read some of this. Just to make sure, this U.S. District Court Judge Timothy Brooks, it doesn't say that in this article, but he was appointed by Barack Obama, has placed a temporary injunction on the laws of application in 6 Arkansas school districts. So this is not the whole state, by the way. And most of the state, you're still having to put the 10 Commandments up. It's only in these 6 districts. Here we go. Okay. Well, folks, sorry, let me enable camera again so you can see me talking to you. So again, Arkansas, by the way, is a overwhelmingly supermajority Republican state. We have, I believe, 80 Republican legislatures in the state House and a similar proportion in the Arkansas State Senate. We also have a Republican governor, aforementioned Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and a Republican Attorney General, Tim Griffin. Overwhelmingly, we vote Republican. The Republican primary race, for all intents and purposes, is usually what chooses the next leaders in the state legislature. And yet, somehow, now this is a federal judge, but one of the pet peeves I've had about the Republicans on a state and federal level is no effort whatsoever to do anything about these judges. Now, this Brooks guy, he's citing two cases. One was in 1980 and one is in 1962, and he's claiming they're unconstitutional. The people who wrote the Constitution ran and held office, and at no point did they do anything like what this cowardly judge is doing, this Obama appointee. And notice he's having to cite these two cases because the reason he's citing these two cases is because for nearly 2 centuries, prayer and the 10 Commandments were allowed in schools. And this is, of course, the old separation of church and state line that a lot of the Christian haters in our society use. That was based upon a ruling in 1940, a losing opinion by Justice Hugo Black in 1947. So there is no precedent whatsoever about removing the 10 Commandments. It's just judicial activism. But the issue I have is there are ways to stop judges. One way is you can defund them. And you won't hear this because a lot of Republican legislators love to feign outrage and claim how Christian conservative they are. But when it comes to actually fighting against the judicial activist, the powers that they have somehow seemingly never get talked about. So this is a way that you can cut the funding to judges. You can pass when their budget is being made, you can set it to zero. And if they try to sue, you can make an issue out of it. Make an effort to do so. Just like when Ronald Reagan tried to shut down the Department of Education. He tried 3 times and failed. But yet he was so popular, he won almost every state, far a bigger win than Trump ever won. And it's because people knew he would make the effort to actually do something to stop the God-hating that's going on in our country. That's why people liked Trump. They didn't care if he cussed or if he had other wives or whatever other issue he had. It was just somebody that wasn't just saying a bunch of slogans put on by a consultant. This was somebody that was wanting to do a fight. And here's another grievous example of a guy who should have been impeached. This is Judge Wendell Griffin. And this also highlights the hypocrisy of the left. This was an Arkansas judge who ruled against the death penalty and then right afterwards went into a protest outside the governor's mansion and then complained about, it says right here, Arkansas judge under fire for participating in death penalty protests after issuing an order blocking an execution, says critics seeking his impeachment want to infringe on his rights as a Baptist pastor to express his religious beliefs. So remember, when the left does something and they cite religion, it's okay. Even if it's a judge. This was Judge Wendell Griffin, who, by the way, is now running for Pulaski County judge, although actually the title should be county governor. Yeah, he's running for office now. But before that, he was an actual sitting judge, and he ruled against the death penalty in Arkansas, actually staying it for a while. I think later on he got overturned. And this was in 2017. State legislature Trent Gardner at the time tried to make an effort to impeach Wendell Griffin, which should have been done. And just to let you know that it didn't go anywhere. And they had a judicial and disability commission. I think they took the death penalty cases away from him, and they may have done some other stuff, but there was nothing really happened. And this was when we had the death penalty in Arkansas. We had the drugs that were used in the death penalty were supposed to expire, and because back then we had another incompetent Republican named Asa Hutchinson who never made any effort to try to make the death penalty what it normally was, which was either firing squad or hanging. That's again, if that's the way our founders did it. They wrote the Constitution, and if you didn't like that process, there was a way to get rid of it. But instead, judicial activism over the course of years have forced states to go, and in particular Arkansas, to have to use the lethal injection because supposedly they know better than the founders. And again, we have cowardly Republican officials who like to put Christian conservative on their political mailers when it comes to actually standing up to Christian values and standing up to the judiciary. They're nowhere to be found. And so, folks, the bottom line, and I'll just kind of end in this what's going on. We need to kick out people like Chris Caldwell. If you want to save this country, this is the solution right here. This is Charlie Kirk kicking out Ronna McDaniel. This is how you fix the Republican Party on a political level. There's of course a lot of other things that we need to do to fix this government, but on a political level, the way to fix it is to kick out the parasites. This is Taylor from the movie Mr. Smith Goes to Washington bullying a senator. This was the character. There's been parasites like Chris Caldwell within the Republican Party and in politics since this nation was founded. And if you see Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, this is the real bad guy here who talks to the senior senator into bullying the junior senator who happens to be Mr. Smith. And this is Caldwell hanging out with Bill Clinton. And then here he is with some of his. I made this graph myself. This is one I made a while ago. Let me get rid of this. But this is his clients, and this is how the situation with the Republican Party. This is why, if you wonder why your Republican legislature doesn't listen to you, it's because this guy and other consultants like him, on behalf of organizations like Zuckerberg's Meta and the casino lobby and the trucking lobby and big healthcare and big energy, are running the Republican Party. The good news is a lot of people are waking up and going, we don't want this. We want an actual Republican Party, not one being controlled by a bunch of organizations that are opposed to the Republican Party principles. Well, folks, that's about it. I'm going to go ahead and take off, take care of some other business. Y'all can follow me at Just the Right Angle on Rumble, YouTube, Keep Arkansas Legal. Also there on Gab, MeWe. I had Parler at one time. I don't know what's happened to Parler. I think Parler's been made and remade over and over again till it's gone. And of course, keep AR Legal on Twitter X. If you know of any other events that are going on, I've posted them before. On Thursday, there will be a candidate forum for Secretary of State. You can come by, attend. You can listen to what candidates have to say. If you have an opinion of your own, voice them. On Friday, there is at least one candidate forum in Lincoln County for the county judge. I'm sure there's some other places where they're having county forums for various candidates. I've mentioned before the other races that are happening. There are some races happening. Let's see. Early House District 46, Tanya Fletcher versus Curtis Varnell. House District 52, Brent Montgomery and Christine Thompson. Let's see, District 5, Mike Bishop, Jeff Pratt, and in District 6, Hunter Rivette and Cody Rogers. And those are Republican primaries. The early primary voting starts March 24th. The primary runoff election is March 31st. It'll be at regular polling locations. Well, folks, thank you for sticking around. Glad y'all were able to Join me if you see this later on. Watch this and share it with others. Find a way to get involved and find out what's going on so that people don't, so that the consultant class don't run uh, things. Get rid of stuff like this. This is what I was talking about earlier. The consultant, and then a bunch of what goes on, how this kind of crooked thing happens. This was the Jamie Barker thing I mentioned earlier. But this kind of thing is happening with other organizations as well. And like I said, they're infesting the Republican Party. All right, folks, remember, when the righteous rule, the people rejoice. I'm going to end that.